and Bobby, CEO of Renovating Retirement, is back to talk about the rhythm of how you can be consistent with those kind of the touches when you reach out and have a potential interaction or just stay in front of clients or potential clients. So,
well, thanks for having me again, Ada. Today will be a short one for me because I have a time conflict coming up, but we definitely wanted to pick up the conversation from last week. So give me a couple examples. You wanted to talk about specifics about kind of what my process is in certain scenarios, right?
yeah. So last week we talked about the CRM and making sure that you're logging every time that you reach out to someone. And we spoke briefly about kind of the need to stay in front of people, right? That most salespeople give up after the fourth try, and most sales are made between 8 and 12 kind of contacts. So
Exactly.
how obviously if you believe in what you're selling, in what you're doing and how you're helping people, then it makes it easier to recognize when they don't answer the phone 500 million times that there's a reason that you're continuing to call back. So tell me about how often are you calling them, and kind of do you have a format where if somebody says this isn't a good time, when are you reaching back out? Or if someone says I need to think about it, when are you reaching back out? And then how often are you reaching back out to them, and in what ways?
So that's a lot of questions. So I'll start at the top. So let's start with I need to think about it, right? To me, that is someone actively in your sales process, right? So there are ways to get that resolved before they get off their phone, right? Because the harder sell, other than hey, just go think about it and take these resources, the harder sell is you don't need time to make a decision. You need information, and I'm the one that has information. So what can I help you with? And then kind of it's a little bit of harder push, right? If they're like, well, I need to talk to my wife. No problem. I understand that. What sort of questions do you think she would have? What do you think she would say when she sees this? And then you can push a little harder before getting off the phone. Now, if they say, if they drive to, I need to get off the phone, then you need to push for a second appointment or third or fifth or whatever it is for that. So what I tell people all the time is get the confirmation of the appointment before you get off the phone, before you get off the Zoom, because having that on the radar means you will be meeting back up with them. And then you can gauge how many times you should touch base with them before that meeting. So using that as an example, I think last week you brought up somebody wanted to talk in the third quarter.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have that date, let's say September 1st, they want to talk to you, or October 1st, then as you go, you have like 5 months in between now and then. So then I would put them on my calendar at least once a month, maybe twice a month, to send them an email, a podcast, some of the resources we talked about, right? If you want to be a little aggressive, which I like, hey, I just sent you an email. You send them a text, right? I sent you an email. I think it's a great podcast. Give it a listen. Let me know what you think. That's the same touch point, but you've done it in two ways to make sure they see it.
So when you're looking at trying to make sure that you're touching someone 12 times before they kind of go into a more passive campaign, when you send them that email and you're sending them that follow-up text, are you considering that one touch or two?
To me, I consider that one, because they're probably only going to respond to one of them. And it's a good chance that if I text them, they will see it. So I don't count that as two. I count that as one touch, because in one day I touch base with them, basically.
The email gave you an excuse to reach out with a text message.
Yep. Or you text, hey, I just listened to a great podcast. I can't wait to hear your opinion. I'll send it to your email. Whatever version of that you want to do. But it lets them know you're thinking about them. It makes you top of mind in their life. And even if all of these things happen, you touch them 12 times over the next couple of quarters, as you were talking about before, they may not be a client. But if you're top of mind, and your follow-up is good and they like what you're talking about, they will probably refer you to somebody in between now and then.
Which is just as valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because all you're doing is providing value, value. Whether it's a podcast, whether it's connecting them with a lawyer who can help with trusts, anything that you caught and you noted in your CRM to build rapport and might be a point of interest can be something super helpful to them between now and whenever you're following up.
So when are you choosing to text versus call?
I like text, and it would kind of come down to the client, right? As you talked about last week, some of the younger crowd likes text, and some of the older crowd likes text, and it's going to be specific to the group. I will usually only text after we've had good rapport and had a good conversation. So I'll never cold text unless they stand me up on a meeting or something.
Right.
But yeah, usually to me, the open rate and the response rate for text is hands down the best.
I agree. I think people have 5 million unread emails and no one keeps their texts like that.
Right.
Yeah, you tend
So
to.
if you met them via social media, maybe you could message them there and count that as a point of contact, something like that. But in general, once I've got rapport, I'll be texting.
Got it. Okay. And then when you email, do you have a formula for, I guess let's go back to text first before we talk about email. When you're texting, are you keeping it formal and putting their name and then your message and signing it? Are you keeping it informal?
Yeah, that's going to be a style thing. For me, I don't keep it formal. I try to make it sound like we're buddies already, right? Because I'm bringing value and I know the message, like you said at the very beginning, the message I have is going to change their life. So if I can focus on, hey, Ada, remember that thing we talked about, blah, blah, blah. I just sent you a great ebook on it, or I just sent you some more information in your email. Just wanted to let you know it's in there. I'll talk to you soon. Or call and say, hey, I left you a voicemail, listen to it. It's got some great link conversation points or great, things that we talked about. And so always for me, I guess almost always for me, it's a 2-point touch. It's a call, voicemail, and then a text, or a call, voicemail, email, text, email, something like that to let them know I have communicated and they're going to see one of those.
Got it. So for me, I also go kind of informal, but I try to be really conscious of mimicking however they respond. So if they're responding with, hi, Ada, then in my next message, I will say, oh, hi, Susan, whatever.
That's a great point. If they're formal, maybe you are a little bit more formal. Yep.
Yeah. And I think I've noticed it more with some of the older clients, just in kind of the formality, where the younger people, it's like a quick message and there's poor punctuation and no signature. So I try to mimic that, but I do think that there's a lot of value once you have a little bit of rapport built of keeping it informal, because it makes you feel like, or it makes them feel like you are more trustworthy because you're a friend.
Absolutely. Like I have a client who's 24. She texted me, wants to get her fiance, or I guess boyfriend at this point, on with a call, and she signed it TTYL, right? So I was like, oh yeah, talk to you later. So I texted the same thing back. I was like, yep, sent the Zoom link. It's in your email, TTYL. So it's a great point. Whatever you're comfortable with, if you're a very formal person, be formal. But it never hurts to mimic what the client is communicating to you.
Well, and I think if you're a formal person, you're likely to attract clients that are more formal. And they'll come to you because they appreciate that.
Exactly.
So what about phone calls? When you want to be respectful of your time, it's about time for you to hop off.
I've got a few more minutes. And then I can go.
So with phone calls, how talk to me about what you do to kind of build rapport once you're on the phone with somebody, or how to
Ooh,
maintain rapport.
okay. So assuming this is someone I've already spoken to, or is this a cold call?
Let's assume it's somebody that you've had a conversation with, and so you're, for whatever reason, they weren't ready to move forward. Whether that was a I need to think, whatever their rebuttal was, right? You're reaching back out and you're trying to stay in front of somebody.
I
Um,
think I think one of the common misconceptions, and we all do it just out of habit, is when you call up, you're like, "Hey, Ada, just checking in. Wanted to see how you're doing." The moment they hear checking in, they have checked out
yeah,
because they know you're calling for sales. They know that you have an agenda. So there's no, I just want to know how the weather is in North Carolina today. Like that's never going to be your call, right? So some of the formality I've gotten to in the last few years is, hey, Ada, I know you were taking some time to think about XYZ. I wanted to call you up and see where we were at with that. And so that gets right to the point. And then you can start talking through, okay, I know you were going to talk with your husband and we had a couple questions outstanding. Does he have any questions? Can we get back together? Blah, blah, blah. And that drives to the point, and it knows that they know you are more professional. You are calling for a reason, not just calling to BS them into hopefully dropping their guard, right? Because that's what it feels like. That's what we get from telemarketers. That's
yeah.
what we get from any salesperson. And
Mhm.
so by being different, this is why I'm calling. This is what company I'm calling from, and this is who I am, or in the exact opposite order of what I just said.
Yeah.
This is who I am. This is the company I'm with, and this is why I'm calling. Gets to the point, because you can say blah 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 blah. Is now a good time to talk?
Yeah.
Okay, no, it's not. No problem. When's a good time for me to call you back? And that gets you done and through the call very quickly, and it lets them know you're professional and you're going to be conscious of their time.
I like it.
So that would be me calling someone who kind of had a first meeting and maybe has ghosted me, or me following up with somebody who had a specific question they were going to go run down or what have you. Usually I will send resources after the call. So I will call up and my conversation will be about the resources I sent. Was anything confusing? Is there anything I can answer for you? A lot of times I've also gone to video email where I'm following up on that video I sent you. What did you think? Right.
So what do you mean by video email?
So I like to use a company called BombBomb, where
Mhm.
your face and video is right in the email, and they can watch it. They see how long it's going to be before they click on it, not like some YouTube thumbnail that could be an hour.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'll even hold up, like jokingly, I'll wave or I'll hold up a little sign that has their name on it, so it's specific to them,
Okay.
and that way they know I made this just for them. And so the thumbnail moves and it's kind of interactive. It's kind of nice. But that video will be customized. Hey, Ada, I know you were going to talk with your husband about XYZ. I wanted to see if those resources were helpful or if you would like some additional ones. You can click the link below to book on my calendar, or I'll give you a call in a couple days.
Okay.
And so that to me is a succinct use of technology. I'll
Yeah.
send the video. It'll have a booking link for my calendar, and they know I'm going to be calling them.
Yeah. Okay. So then when you send an email, what are you putting for that subject line?
I haven't done a ton of split testing on this. This is just my experience.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times it'll be meeting summary. It'll be a quick question about our meeting,
Mm-hmm.
something where they know we've already connected.
Okay.
So something that's like additional resources from our meeting or your homework or something like that,
Yeah.
where they already have a point of contact or point of connection from a meeting we had, and that's conveyed in the subject line.
Got it.
Now, I haven't done a lot of testing on it, but I know those emails get opened 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah. Well,
And
and I
then,
think it helps that you're doing that phone or that text follow up. So
yep.
they're looking for it from you. So lastly, let's go over how often. How often are you reaching out to someone? So if they ghost you on a meeting,
Mm-hmm.
then how often are you reaching out to them?
So I got ghosted 3 times on Monday. Okay. I called them when the meeting happened, and I was able to speak with 2 of the 3. They
Mhm.
had very good reasons, like new birth in the family, things like that. It's like, oh, no problem. I immediately sent them, when I got off the call, I immediately sent them a booking link for our next meeting, as well as a little video congratulating them, saying I'm looking forward to it. And I resent them their homework. Right. So
Yeah.
that's one. Now, 1 of the 3 didn't answer the phone. So I reached back out again on Wednesday. And I said, hey, hadn't heard from you. Wanted to see if you wanted to reschedule our time, blah, blah, blah. And then I texted, hey, want to just let you know I'm available next Wednesday at the same time. Will that work? The text was the one that worked. So I had emailed, I had called, and I texted after I called. And he's like, yeah, sorry I missed it. Let's do next week at that same time. So I
Okay.
booked it, I confirmed it, and I sent him a text saying, I just sent you the link. Let me know you got it. He responded back, yes, I got it. So I was able to follow up with all 3 of them. So that's just one example. Like I only waited 2 days, right?
Right.
So if you have somebody ghost you, maybe the longest I'll wait is a weekend, maybe 3 days, and then I'll reach back out.
And then what about somebody who you get that first appointment and now they don't book a second one, or they ghost you on the second one? So you're in kind of this chase, or they give you I need to think about it, or whatever it is. I'm going on vacation, I can't book, I'm too busy at
Mhm.
work, whatever it is, right? Something kind of vague without a hard kind of end date, and you don't have a second appointment booked, but you're trying to stay in front of them.
Yep.
How do you what's your rhythm for reaching out to them for that?
So one of my also my evolution in the last few years has been certainly drive for that meeting. And to your point, you drive for it and they're not able to do it because of whatever excuse, right? I will tell them on that call, not a problem. I'm going to reach out to you every Friday until we connect,
Okay.
because this is really important and this message needs to get out there. And I think you and your husband need to hear it. So I'm going to call you. Now, if you lose interest and you don't want this conversation, completely fine. I'll
Yeah.
keep you on our mailing list. You'll see some of our content, but this is really important and it needs to be explained to you and your husband. So I believe that, and I'm going to keep calling you.
Okay.
And I'll just tell them, like, I will be calling you. And then every Friday, I set up the afternoon for every Friday to be calling and emailing, and I'll be doing that.
Yeah.
So that part is going to be, I'm gonna tease it, or as one of my mentors says, salt it. Let's you know what's coming, right? And that will usually say, I understand it's very important. They'll give me feedback. I understand it's very important. I really have to travel for 2 weeks. Can you call me in 3 weeks? Not a problem. I won't
Yeah.
call you for the next 2 weeks, and I'll
And then
talk to you the third week,
got
because
it.
it makes them kind of shit or get off the pot, right? They're going to say, yes, I want you to reach out to me, or you know what, this is not for me right now. Okay.
So my recent experience has told me that while it feels like you are being super annoying to call every week, if you wait 2 weeks, the feedback I was getting was clients were saying, because I took a week off and then I started my reaching back out, and they were like, I totally forgot about this. It just fell off out of my mind. You know what? You're right. It is important and I want to book it. So, and then here's, whatever. Can we push
Mm-hmm.
this out? I have this at work. Oh, okay. But the 2 weeks was too long. So uh,
Completely agree.
I think for somebody like the reach out to me in Q3 or in Q4, whatever, then you don't need to stay as front of mind. You just need to stay kind of on their in their mind. But
Mm-hmm.
for someone that you're actively chasing, yeah, it's every week.
For me, that's the answer. Some people want to do every couple weeks, every month. That's not the answer for me. I have
Yeah.
had the most success when it's weekly, if not every couple days.
Yeah.
Like one of the best salespeople I ever worked with, he called me every other day for the majority of a quarter.
Wow.
Like
That's persistent.
his follow up was good,
Yes.
and he got the sale.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he always got like you either get people to say please stop calling me, or
Yep.
I'm no longer interested, or they say yes, I would like to proceed.
Yep.
And either way, that's a resolution.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I know you've got something coming up, so I appreciate it.
Yep.
And we will talk more not next week, correct?
Correct. Not
Okay.
next week.
Okay.
We'll talk in 2 weeks.
We'll talk in 2 weeks. Sounds
All
good.
right.
Thank
See
you.
ya. Bye.
Bye. So, I want to kind of dig a little bit more into the email and the email subject lines. How do you get people to open their emails? Another kind of question to tease for next week is, how do you know if they've opened their emails, and if they haven't responded, how do you manage that? Um, and so let's talk about the subject line. For Bobby, the trick was referencing something that will make them kind of think of how they've already talked to him. Summary from our meeting, whatever. So when you go to write that subject line, because for most people it is an afterthought, realize that 69% of people will mark an email as spam based purely on the subject line. That's it. And 64 people decide what to open based on the subject line. So the subject line needs to not be an afterthought. It needs to be probably the most important thing. It is about whether you're going to the spam, whether you're going to trash, whether you're being opened. The 4 key components to a good subject line is that it's unique, it's useful, it's urgent, and it's ultra specific. So in Bobby's example, it's very specific: additional resources after our meeting, or summary from our meeting on this date, or our meeting about X. So it's useful in that exactly, oh, I'm in a place to watch those videos, or I have a question about that. Exactly what you're getting. It's useful, it's unique. It doesn't look like every other subject line. And unique doesn't necessarily need to be, that it's very creative and it doesn't look like anybody else's. But when they look at their inbox, it needs to not look like every other there needs to be a reason that their eye is going there and that they're reading it. And then urgent. So Bobby's subject lines really aren't urgent. Um, and maybe that's less important because he's doing these additional follow-ups. He's using email really as a reason to call or to text. If you're trying to reach someone via email, then there needs to be some urgency so that they do open it. It doesn't get left unread forever and ever. So a quick example, financial workshop registration, that has no urgency, that isn't really specific. It kind of looks spammy, honestly. Like, you're going to get a vast majority of people who aren't going to open it. Where steps to take within the next 9 days of changing a job. So if you are trying to target people, and this is if you're sending email, like cold emails, right? You have to grab their attention to open it. That urgency is less important if you're using it the way that Bobby uses his emails, as like a reason to reach out to people. So let's see, what else can I say about subject lines? Let's talk a little. So now we've talked about subject lines. I don't think I really have much more to say on that. I'm kind of looking at some notes. I recently did a little online workshop and they went really deep into this. So I'm giving you some of those highlights. They went into tons of examples and more detail. So if you have questions, definitely reach out. But the last thing I want to really talk about with emails is how you format them. So if you're doing it like Bobby uses email as a reason to reach out to someone, then for him, he's putting that video, right? For him, he finds that his clients love video, that they watch that, they intake that information. So he has a video that's embedded. It's not a link. You know exactly what you're clicking on. You can see that it's specific. And then he's presenting, oh, excuse me, that information pretty clearly. Hey, here's a summary. Here's some resources. Let me know if you have any questions. Put a quick call to action. If you're cold emailing, the objective is very different because it's not a reason to reach out to them. It is how you're reaching out to them. So you need to be very engaging. And at that point, you need to think, hey, is the headline grabbing them? Is that subject line grabbing them? Or are they opening it? They open it. Is the headline in the email something that's grabbing them? And then when they start to read, are they engaged enough to finish? The most successful way to get someone to engage is to be interesting, which generally means kind of putting it in story format. How is it relevant to them? Why do they care? If it's a subject that they're super, super interested about, then maybe something really factual will work. But if you're cold emailing, that's unlikely. So consider the story. And I honestly get emails from people that I have signed up to, get information from or whatever. And they do this very, very well. So it's the, hey, I was here doing X, Y, and Z, and I thought about this, or I realized this. And so I did this, and that leads into the information. They're engaged in this story now, and they want to know how it ends and what happens. And so they read to the end and they intake that information. Whatever your story is, and they can be super lame stories. Like it doesn't need to have some great plot twist, right? Like I was drinking coffee and I was watching the birds eat from the bird feeder and realizing how much was falling on the ground. And I realized that kind of unconscious leakage happens in parts of our lives, not just the bird feed out of the bird feeder. And so I decided to take an inventory of my finances and see where I was losing kind of those little bits at a time that added up to a bunch. And so this is what I did. I sat down and I did this, or I did this analysis, or I booked an appointment, or I talked to this person, whatever your call to action. And then it bridges to, whatever. I did this and now I'm offering it to clients. I did this and I have put together a webinar so I can share the process with other people. I was, or maybe it's someone else's story. I was sitting and having coffee with so and so, and they talked about this and how they saw this in their account. And so this happened, and you bridge to a call to action. There's lots of opportunities. The stories are, kind of the important part, but the plot of the story is not important. So think about that if you are in the kind of cold emailing market, or if you're trying to stay in front of someone, maybe it is kind of a warm contact. It's the, reach out to me in Q4 and Q3. And so you're looking at months and months. You might send them some of those story emails so it's worth their time to read. It engages them to the end, and you stay in the forefront of their mind, even though that's a warmer email. As always, let me know if you have any questions, any comments, and anything else you would like to go over, or different guests, or if you want to be a guest. I'm trying to keep this relevant and active. So let me know, and we'll go from there. Have an amazing weekend, and I will talk to everybody next